The new Golfer Profiles tool was an attempt to take all the same great information, inject a little bit more, but make it way easier to read and understand. And I think I have accomplished just that. At the top of the page, it looks very similar to the old Golfer Profile page. You have your opportunity to select any golfer that you want. Let's go with Rory McIlroy. And you can type in his name, you can search for him, you can drop down, all that good stuff. You'll see a nice little headshot of Rory, his official world golf ranking, how much money he has made this season, and his current ranking in the FedEx Cup standings. Below that, there is a running total of each strokes gained metric that you can really look through and see for whatever time period that you want. Now, this goes back to the start of 2011, and Rory McIlroy, as you can imagine, in strokes gained total has completely gone up and to the right over the course of his career. If you want to focus in on just a specific time period, the slider at the bottom allows you to do that. Or if you want to switch to a different stat, you'll be able to see the gains or losses or trajectory for Rory in that stat. There's a couple of reasons and ways that I like to use this. One, I like to see golfers trying to making improvements on themselves. So the best designed argument for this is Webb Simpson, who was an average putter, slightly above average putter, and then when the anchor ban went into effect, he was horrendous with the flat stick. You can see from basically the start of 2015 all the way down until mid 2017 or so, he was just a very bad negative putter, and since then he has really figured it out and he's become one of the better putters on the PGA Tour. You can also see it in smaller sample sizes with, for example, guys like Erik van Rooyen, who let's go to strokes gained total. There's a little bit more data on that. You can see this upward trajectory that he has had at the end of 2021. This is kind of his playoff stretch. Catching guys as they're on this type of trajectory is certainly valuable. So I do like this, and I use it quite a bit in my research and quite a bit when I'm just trying to learn more about some of these golfers. Below that is the splits. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so here we go. On the left-hand side, this is just a very simple matrix for each of the strokes gain metrics for each golfer's last 12, 24, and 36 rounds. That way you can see, oh, wow, Erik van Rooyen really improved over his last 12, over his last 24. He's been okay. He's been about tour average. Last 36, he's been slightly below average. This continues to tell that story of an upward trajectory, and you can start to see, where is it coming? Well, the putter got much hotter over his last 12 rounds compared to the previous 24 or maybe even 36. So it really just helps with that trajectory. Now, putting splits by surface are so... I think they're overblown, but they are important. And golfers tell us this all the time. So the ability to see golfers and the surfaces that they putt well on or don't putt well on is important. If you go to Bermuda grass greens, you realize that Erik van Rooyen is losing about a quarter of a stroke per round in his career on Bermuda. But Poana greens, oh yeah, that's where you want to start EVR. He's gaining about a half a stroke or more on POA greens per round. It's really cool information. A lot of guys have stark contrasts like this. It might be because of where they grew up or the type of greens that they are comfortable playing on. It could be a variety of reasons, but some guys do really have stark contrasts, and Rory much more close to zero across the board in his putting splits category. On the right-hand side, there are a couple of fantasy splits. So the first one is going to be the salary that Rory was each week, how much value he returned, the average ownerships, and how many events are in the database for that. So it's very simple for Rory McIlroy. I have 68 fantasy events on him in the database. 63 of them, he has been at least $10,000. In those events, he has returned 7.24 times value. That is taking his salary, dividing it by 1,000, then taking his fantasy points and dividing it by that number that you just came up with. So for example, if he scores 100 fantasy points and he was $10,000, you take 10,000, you divide it by 1,000, that number is 10. Then you take 10,000 divided by that number, 10, and you realize that he returned you 10 times value at that price. or I guess, I'm sorry, or 100 divided by 10 would be 10. I talked myself right out of that one. And then only 5 occasions in which Rory McIlroy was in the $9,000 range. Let me see if I can find somebody who has a bit more of a split that we can look at. Maybe like a Bubba Watson. He probably has a lot of events, and he's probably been all over the place. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. 3 events in which Bubba was over $10,000. His average ownership in those events, 6.2%, and he returned 8.2 times value. That tells you when you get Bubba and you get an expensive Bubba, he has paid it off. He has. In the 9,000s, he's got 10 events there. He's got 30 in the 8,000s, 30 in the 7,000s, and 5 in the 6s. So pretty interesting to see the distribution for these golfers across salary range. And then also, I do keep track of ownership numbers. And you can just see, I throw the last, 5 or 6 results on here just so that you can see what those averages are. If you hover over them, you'll be able to see what the name of the tournament was. So, he was 3.5% owned at the Northern Trust. He was 6% owned at the Wyndham Championship. He was 16% owned at the 3M Open. That's how that works. Let's go back to Rory as our example here, and we'll scroll down to the stats section of this. And this is a very easy way to look at the golfer's PGA Tour ranks for the season. So Rory McIlroy, second in driving distance. He averages 319.1 yards. He is 4th off the tee. He is 67th in putting. This is a way for me to just say, hey, here are the most important, the most interesting stats. Here are their ranks. Here are their values. On approach, you have the proximity numbers. So approach is from 50 to 125 yards, 100 to 125, 125 to 150, so on and so forth, so that if you want to play the bucket game, you can play the bucket game. And same with putting as well. You'll be able to see 3-putt avoidance, putts inside 10 feet, 10 to 15, 15 to 20, 20 to 25, and so on. If none of those stats that I gave you were good enough, you can look up any stat that you want here in the search area. You just go by, whatever one you want. Maybe I want to see Rory McIlroy underneath scoring, his back 9 scoring average. This will update, and we can say, okay, his back 9 scoring average, 35.5, and he ranks 122nd on tour. There's a million different stats in here from the PGA Tour. You can go on and see whichever one that you would like. I highly suggest that you actually click a specific one instead of clicking an entire category, because that will sum all of them and put them in these little modules. Now, the results section. Here's your results and your strokes gains metrics. Very, very straightforward. What was the date? What was the tour? What was the tournament? What position did he finish in? And what were his strokes gain metrics? You will notice there are events in which we do not have off the tee, approach, around the green, putting, and tee to green numbers. That is because they don't exist. So the Open Championship, they do not keep those stats, and if they do not share them with the PGA Tour. So my data comes directly from the PGA Tour. So whatever they have, I give you. Now, what you can still calculate, even without that information, is strokes gained total. So that's what I do as well per round. So you do always have that information, even if you don't see the metrics across the board. Now, there's a couple of things here. Obviously, each one of these column headers are sortable, so you could click on any one and see Rory McIlroy's best strokes gained total week, or his best strokes gained approach week, or maybe even his worst putting week. Just click it twice, see his worst putting week. Maybe you want to do a little bit of research for a specific tournament. Let's go with the Tour Championship. So you type in Tour and you see, okay, I'll click Tour Championship. And actually, I saw that there was a second one. They used to call it the Tour Championship presented by Coca-Cola, which used to be the other name. Just click that one as well. You'll get all of the results here, and you can say there's Rory McIlroy in his trips to the Tour Championship. Very easy to see. And when you're done with it, you click this little eraser tool. Now, you might not notice it with Rory McIlroy, but there is more than one tour's worth of information in here. There is not only Champions Tour, but there is Korn Ferry Tour. So let's start with that. Let's go to someone like Seamus Power, who spent a lot of his 2021 going back and forth between the PGA Tour and the Korn Ferry Tour. And you can see here are his results. So here are his latest PGA Tour events. This is the event, the Korn Ferry Tour event in Las Vegas. Here is another one here. So you can start to see Is this golfer playing every single week? What are his finishing positions? As a lot of these young guys are coming up from the Korn Ferry Tour, you're going to want to see these results. Now, there are no strokes gained metrics for those, so you'll see them for the most part be completely blank, but at least we do have the order in which they were played and, of course, the finishing position, which is always going to be important. We should also have some Champions Tour data in here as well. So if you go to someone like maybe Jim Furyk, who now primarily resides on that on that Champions Tour, you'll see here are his results. The Mitsubishi Electric Classic. Can you believe that's made it into a RickRunGood database? It has. So you can kind of see, especially because golf is so different than other sports, as these guys are bouncing around from different areas, from all the different tours, to be able to see just the golf that is being played is incredibly valuable stuff. And I find this tool to be really easy to deep dive one specific player, find out what you need to know about him, see all the results, see all the splits, and learn very, very quickly.